All right, today we are going to talk about domain and range from discrete functions. You first want to make sure that you have a lot of different colored pens so that when you write these notes down, you can use different color because color helps you to remember things quicker and easier. The second thing you also want to do is you want to write down the title. So your title is Domain and Range, Discrete Functions. That should go up top. The second thing you want to do is you want to write down the link that allowed you to get to this video so that if you ever need to go back and watch it again, you can go back and refresh your memory and find it real quickly. All right, let's get started. So today's daily learning objective is we will learn how to identify the domain and range from 4 types of discrete functions. The first one we're going to start with is sets of coordinates. The second one is we're going to go to a graph. The third one from a table. And the fourth one from a mapping. If you haven't heard these terms before, domain and range, discrete functions, or any of the 4 different types of discrete functions, that's okay. We're going to explain and get to them in just a moment. So let's go to the next slide. So our vocabulary, we need to know what a discrete function is, we need to know what domain is, and we need to know what range is before we can find any of them. So the first thing, discrete function is sets of data which have gaps in them. So it's going to be information that's given to you, but that you can't just plot on a graph and keep your line moving. Okay? In other words, they're going to be described as sets of ordered pairs, or x comma y. And you know what those are. The next thing we're going to talk about is domain. And the domain is the x value in an ordered pair. It also has a couple of different names that it goes by. It's called the input, or it's also called the independent variable. Okay, our range is known as the y value in an ordered pair, and it goes by, instead of the input as domain, it goes by the output, and it's known as the dependent variable. So right now, we've got a lot of different words and a lot of different things that kind of go together. And let me try on the next slide to give you a hint as to how to remember which goes with which. So the first thing that I think about is that my X comes before Y in the alphabet. And then on the word domain, the D in domain comes before the R in range in the alphabet. And then the I for the input comes before the O for the output in the alphabet. Therefore, the X, the D, and the I all go together, while the Y, the R, and the O go together. Okay? So the X value, the domain, and the input all go together. The Y value, the R for range, and the O for output all go together. Okay? So let's go and let's start finding the domain. So the first way we're going to find the domain and range is from a graph. And we are given 4 points, a point here, 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 and here. So now we first need to identify what the coordinates are. The coordinates of the first point, -2, +2. The coordinates of the second point, 0, 4. The coordinates of the third point, 1, -4. And the coordinates of the fourth point, 3, 0. Okay, in order to determine the domain, which are your x values, we are going to list all the coordinates next to us. Okay, and we're going to figure out which one the x values are. So the x value on the first point is -2, then a 0, then a 1, and a 3. So we're going to write down our domain. So our domain is, and you write domain colon -2, 0, 1, and 3, and you put them in these fancy brackets. Notice that when you're writing your domain, you write the domain in increasing order, from smallest to largest. Okay, it just so happens that they're in increasing order in this set of coordinates up top. Our range is going to be our y values. So we have 2, 4, -4, and 0. But again, remember that the range has to go in increasing order. So we're going to start with a -4 for our range. Then go to 0, then go to 2, and then go to 4. Again, write out the word range, put a colon, and the special brackets. Okay? That's how you find the domain and range when you're given sets of coordinates or from a graph. Okay? why don't you pause the computer and write this down. Make it nice and neat and clear so that you can understand it. Okay, let's go from a table this time. So here's our table of values. We have our x values of 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and our y values of -3, 0, 3, 6, and 9. And those would make 5 different points. So our domain, again, is going to be the x values, and they have to be in increasing order. So our domain is 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Our range is going to be the y values, and they have to be in increasing order. So as we look over here, you can tell that they're going in increasing order. So our range is going to be -3, 0, 3, 6, and 9. Let's try to practice from another table. Okay? As we're looking at this table, I have a 0, a 4, an 8, a 12, and a 16. So my domain needs to be 0, 4, 8, 12, and 16. And then my f of x values, or my y values, just another way to write y. We have a 50, a 45, a 40, a 35, and a 40. So you notice that the 40s repeat. Well, in your range or domain, if a number repeats, you only have to write it once. So our range is going to be 35, and then we're going to only write 40 once, and then we're going to write 45, and we're going to write 50. So we're just really identifying the x values and the y values in the domain and range. And that's how you write the domain and range when you're given a table of values. Again, pause your computer, copy this down, use some different colors. The last way that we are going to find our domain is from a mapping. And a mapping is 2 ovals. We have one oval on the left, one oval on the right. And they have some numbers or values on the left one and values on the right. They're both numbers in this case. And then we have lines that connect them. Well, the lines are the ones are what make the coordinates. So we actually have 4 sets of points here. So our coordinates are as follows. 1, 6, see how the line connects 1, 6, 2 and 7, 3 and 8, and 4 and 9. So now we have 4 sets of coordinates. And we can go back to our first slide where we learned how to write the domain and the range from our sets of coordinates. The domain is my x values, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And our range is going to be the y values, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Both have to be in increasing order, and you have to have the fancy little brackets. Okay, let's try another mapping. We have these in the left oval, and the left oval really becomes your x value, or your n value. And these in our right oval, and the right oval really becomes your y value, or your f of x, or your f of n, whichever one you're using. Okay? And the lines that are going to be drawn look like this. So how many sets of coordinates do we have? We actually have 4 sets of coordinates. The first one is 1, -5. The second one is 2, -7. The third one is 3, 9. And the last one is 4, 9. So you would write those sets of coordinates down. And now we're going to find the domain. So the domain for these sets of coordinates, or for this mapping, is 1, 2, 3, 4. The range is going to be the y values. So -5, -7, 9, and 9. And again, what happens when we have a 9 or a number that repeats itself? What we're going to do is we're only going to write that down once. So our range here is going to be -7, -5, and 9. And they're going to go in increasing order. -7 is smaller than -5, and that's smaller than +9. Okay? So why don't you pause the computer right now and write those down. The last thing I'm going to have you do is we're going to go here, and we have a mapping, we have a table, and we have a a graph where you have points plotted. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you write these down, write down the domain and range, and then we're going to check it in class tomorrow. Okay? If you have any questions, please watch the video back and try and figure out what the domain and range of these 3 different types of discrete graphs are. Have a great night. Take care.